December, what, 23rd? Yeah, 23rd, 2022. It is extremely cold in the Midwest. It's -8 out here. Thank you to everybody who's showing up for this live. Let's see if we can adjust this. Obviously, we're not going to be doing this live outside because it is really cold out in the barn and it's half snowed in there. If anybody could let me know how my sound is. I think I have the good headset, but I can't always remember. KD, it's already here. Man, already here with questions. My God, awesome. Announcements. Thailand. I'll be leaving on the 27th for Thailand. I'll be in Thailand by I think the 31st. Yeah. Then our seminar is going to start and it's going to go, I think, from the 4th to the 9th. And then after, we'll be working on shooting another project. We have a program that just came out today, the Basis of Strength program. It's out. Once again, everybody who's getting the Basis of Strength program today, please give me edits. I look at this stuff so many times that I can't possibly see all the mistakes that I'm making anymore because it all makes perfect sense to me. I think everybody will be extraordinarily happy with the perfect path that is laid out in the Basis of Strength program. It is the finest ever done, if I do say so myself. What else we need to talk about? After Thailand, we shoot another program, another 2 programs. We are working on building out our entire idea of programming because we're trying to provide people with a 10-year program. We will be going back and finishing exercises for overweight individuals. I hesitated to put that out because there were not good kettlebells available to do that program. Now both Bells of Steel and ProKettlebell.com are making bells 4K, 6K, 8K so that there is a starting point for everybody out there, and ProKettlebell.com is releasing their kettlebell magnet so we can have 4K, 5K, 6K, 7K, 8K, 9K, 10K, 11K to get us to the 12K, which is what everybody needs. Now we can build a perfect system. So we have the equipment, now the programming comes. So we are going to finish the Basis of Strength program, we are going to finish the Exercises for Overweight Individuals program. That program will lead into the Introduction to Kettlebell program. That leads into Swings and Clean and Press program. Swing and Clean and Press lead into Turkish Get Up Master. From Turkish Get Up Master, we will progress into a squat program and from there into a snatch program. The idea of that is just the kettlebell path. There is then the parallel path of the two-handed club program. So right now there is the mill squat program, which is 3 levels, which was always intended to be an introductory program. 3 levels, 5 exercises each level, 15 total moves. The Basis of Strength program is the big sibling, brother, sister, I don't know. The angry older sibling of the mill squat program. It is 7 levels with a perfect path all the way through. And that program is designed for weights that don't even exist or are not commonly available yet. For people who got the Basis of Strength PDF this morning, you'll see that there is included in there a path to the Great Gamma. The Great Gamma was a famous wrestler who lived in the Peshawar region, 50, 80 years ago. And he used, I'm saying my time frames wrong, but he was famous for using an 80-pound heavy club to train. And so my goal has always been to get people towards that ungodly level. For a long time, that equipment didn't exist. Most of the club companies only made up to a 45. 8X Mason Club has made an adjustable club system that goes up in 1.25 pound increments. I, of course, have a specific handle with them and some more projects with them coming out in the future. And there is an add-on kit, which is supposed to get us to the 80-pound limit. It's been on hold because of the supply chain issue And because of steel issue, just getting your hands on steel, we're looking at some alternative ways to get people to the 80-pound equipment. The program is written, the Basis of Strength program is written for equipment that is not commonly available yet. There are other companies putting out heavy clubs. And we have 5-pound jump path also in the perfect path, but that's just harder on people. Once the clubs get above 50 pounds, getting down to a 5-pound jump can be really hard on everybody. It's hard on me when I did it because I originally made clubs to do that in the 50, 55, and 60-pound range, but I would like to get everybody up to the 80. So there is a perfect path in there for that. I'm getting lost here in my own thoughts. I'm tracking. After Thailand, after program shoots, then there will be seminars in London, end of February, and I'm talking to Sports Therapy Scotland about going up to Scotland after the England section to maybe do some more training up there, or maybe we'll just make videos. Sports Therapy Scotland is probably one of my favorite guys out there in the training world. Sports Therapy Scotland is Dave. His name is Dave. He runs Sports Therapy Scotland. I worked on a movie with him back in 2017. He was our physio for that movie, swords, all that kind of stuff, horseback riding, lots of physio on that movie, because not a lot of the actors came fully prepared for what they needed to do. And I've been trying to get over to Scotland to work with him for a long time. We were supposed to do it in 2019, but I ended up on a movie in Romania. Then 2020 happened. Obviously, nothing happened then. 2021, and now here we are in 2022. In 2022, I started doing seminars again, but we only started at the midpoint of the year because lockdown had gone all the way in a lot of places until mid 2022. So we're going to try and get some Sports Therapy Scotland stuff going in February, March of 2023. That guy is a genius. He's an old kettlebell sport guy. He's the guy who got me into Versa climbers, mountain climbing. He used to do like Mount Everest on the mountain climber. It would take him hours to do back when he was a trainer. Where was he training back then? I'm not quite sure where he was training back then, but he's worked with Scotland Rugby and a bunch of these other teams, and he works with famous people around the world. He's an absolutely amazing physiotherapist, and he knows a lot about training. He's an amazing trainer, so I would like to do a bunch of projects with him as well. I'm rambling. After that, we're going to have seminars in March in Bellingham, Washington. We're also going to have seminars in the fall in Bellingham, Washington, I think August or September, on one of the barrier islands out there. We have Austin in the beginning of May, and we are going to have Italy. There's a 7-day Italy thing being organized by the leader of Hydrocore, the designer of Hydrocore, who is Italian. And we're going to be doing a 7-day thing there with a bunch of different instructors. I think that's probably it for announcements. That's enough chatterwalling. Chatterwalling? Is that a word? I don't know. Chatterwalling. All right, let's get up to the questions here. Let me get a sip of my Shady Lion coffee. I'm doing Shady Lion coffee today because it's super cold out, and I need a little kick to get me going this morning. KD, walking question. Thank you guys for labeling the questions very clearly. That helps me a lot. How do we develop proper walking gait mechanics and movement patterns for simple walking forward? Does walking with a kettlebell in goblet or a club in order help activate the right posture and gait? Yes, there are a whole series of walking drills that people do. Usually, they have a bunch of things you need to think about when you think about walking. The most important thing is that people learn to stand up well, which people very commonly in the modern world do not. So our first step is always the basics of kettlebells and clubs, because that tends to restore a lot of people's ankle mobility. It strengthens the arch of their feet and their ankles, the rotation of their knees, and returns them to standing posture very well. After that, we start stepping patterns. And there are a whole series. I made these back in maybe 2021, a series of kettlebell walking and swinging kettlebell videos. where you take a step and it can either be contralateral or ipsilaterally loaded. That means kettlebell on the same side as the stepping leg or kettlebell on the opposite side of the stepping leg. And there are stepping forward drills, stepping back drills, stepping laterally drills. And you can then evolve those movements upward nearly forever. Usually, how I help people learn to walk better is by focusing below it, which is our standing stuff, and above it, which is our running stuff. And of course, ankle mobility and dorsiflexion and foot mobility. A lot of people in the modern world don't have foot mobility, so their stride isn't correct. And that's corrected a lot through standing posture and swinging weights. The standing posture puts the foot in a known location and the body learns to move around it. Then we go into, there's a whole treadmill program that I wrote, which I call the Tom Cruise program, because I originally wrote it based on a series of movement ideas that I got from watching Tom Cruise run. It's a great program. I'm talking about getting a treadmill. Bells of Steel is going to be making a treadmill, and I'm going to try and get that so that I can video and release that program. So I tend to train below it, standing, and I tend to train above it, increasing speed running, barefoot running, and then barefoot running with load. And then in the middle, people's walking gait tends to get better. There are a lot of people who do specific walking gait drills. I do all of those walking gait drills with swinging weights. And there's a trick to this. It's a neurological trick, and it's adding something that people have to think about that causes them not to think about the walking. As you swing a weight, as you take steps, you have to think about where every part of your body is all the time. And you load the certain movement chains. There are some systems that focus on this very specifically. I tend to do this with what's called a flooding method, where I do movement patterns that are not necessarily directly related to the end goal of walking, because I ramp the complexity way up. Standing, walking, swinging weight, running with load. Because when people do that, the walking part becomes the least difficult part of the equation, and people stop having to think about it. So the drills are designed, each one, to deal with one specific thing. Lead leg rotating in, lead leg rotating out. There are kettlebell and club versions of that. There's loading the hip, there's standing all the way up, there's a small mountain. There is a large mountain stance version of that. It goes on and on. The most important thing that people need to work on is their standing posture, which is their basic kettlebells. And then their ankle and their foot mobility, which is done oftentimes by putting people on inclines and having them repeat that basic training over again, so that the mobility becomes natural and not a stretch. It's integrated into movement. And then you have the walking drills, and then you have the running drills. I'm not sure I'm explaining this very well today. But that's the general idea. That's the general layout of the whole plan. So the real question was, does walking with a kettlebell and goblet or a club in order to help activate the right posture and gait? Yes. So there are these other drills that you will see a lot of people do, CrossFit, and there's all the versions of farmers carries that people do. You have farmers carry with a weight in one hand. You have farmers carry with weight in two hands, arm hanging down. Then you have double rack position. You have goblet position. You can have overhead position, which is really hard for most people who weren't ballerinas. And then you have all the combinations of those: rack, low, rack, low. So that would be rack, low, left, rack, low, right. Then you have overhead rack left, overhead rack right. Then you have low overhead right, low overhead left. And those are kind of the basic ones there. And those are versions of farmers carries, usually done with kettlebells because they're the easiest to do. The overhead drills tend to be really hard for most people because most people tend not to have the upper thoracic extension to do the overhead drills properly while keeping their core engaged. Most people get their upper thoracic extension to do the walking drills by getting it from their lower back because their upper back doesn't have the proper extension. But yes, you can work on that. Strengthening your posture is always the key goal of everything that we do to get us good at standing up so that we can be good at walking, so that we can be good at running, so that we can progress to jumping, so that we can progress to vaulting. Excellent questions already, guys. Katie always coming in strong with all the questions from the Discord server. If you don't know, there's a Discord server where people talk about training specific to this channel, but you guys can talk about whatever you want. People can share stories over there about their progress, about how good they are doing, about the equipment they use. People can share different ideas, and there's a lot of innovation and people engineering good solutions over there. And so a lot of these questions that the KD is asking come directly from that group. And then it's essentially, I just love it. It's just like a big think tank that happens over there all on its own. Excellent. Another question from KD, program question, excellently labeled, thank you. For your upcoming overweight deconditioned program, what is the minimum number of days, week it can be run? What is the time commitment? That varies greatly. So like all the things that I do, the goal is to start with a light thing, something so light that people will do it and then they can learn to succeed. So you're gonna start with say 3 sets of 3, and then it's gonna build up to say 20 sets of 3. The goal is to keep it a half an hour under each day, but to ramp up towards that half an hour because we are more likely to get compliance to people when they succeed. If you make the first workout out of the gate super hard for people who are deconditioned or who have been injured or who are just coming out of therapy of some kind, they will get so tired and it will wreck them, and then they will never want to continue again. So every program that we do has some type of ramp up phase. You'll see that this is very apparent in the two-handed swing program or a kettlebell swing program, where we start with an extremely low number of reps per minute, and then we ramp it up a little bit every time. That is specifically a psychological thing so that it starts easy and then people only have to add 5% more effort each time. 5 to 7%. The math changes, of course, as the numbers change. The same thing is true of our clean and press program. It starts with a low number of reps and sets so that people can learn to succeed, and then it ramps up each time. The clean and press program and the swing program, they will ramp up and then they will go way back down and then they will ramp up. That is intentional. That has to be there in order to keep people progressing for years. You have to have built-in low phases of training. You cannot go up on a straight line forever. No organism on the planet goes up on a straight line forever. If you were, you'd be Superman. So the deconditioned overweight training program starts the same way. The goal is to start people with a low number of reps. Let them learn to succeed, and a lot of that program is neurological, where we keep the exercises the same and we add sets so that people only have to do one more thing than they did last time. That one more thing is the thing that causes adaptation, which causes change, which allows people to learn to get better over time. People are slowly adapting to increased demand so that they can move to the next program. A lot of training deconditioned or overweight individuals or people with injuries is just doing a small amount of work and letting people sit with it, figure out how it feels in their body, and then let them come back and learn to master a basic series of skills so that they can move up in weight, so that they can get more benefit. Everything we do does this sinusoidal, am I using that word right? Sinusoidal wave of intensity and demand so that it gets hard, you hit a goal, it goes back down. You're going to see a giant version of that that's now in the basis of strength program called the Perfect Path. The Perfect Path is, I love it. It's brilliant. If I showed you guys the math behind it, you guys would think it was great. I'm sure the people on the Discord will figure it out in no time flat. That there's a path through each one of these things. but it's meant to, if you're staying with the same weight with the basis of strength program, there are 7 levels. It's a very complex program. The program has a lot of levels because we're trying to add a lot of time to get people to adapt to tension and to torsion and traction of the joint structures with a lever. But you'll notice in that program that there's no 2 levels in a row after the initial adaptation phase. So this idea always goes through all of our training that varies in intensity or in complexity to keep people moving forward forever. And then all the programs will Tetris into each other so that on accident, it will create what's called muscle confusion by having people never do the same patterns at the same time. It's a giant, crazy mathematical, just wave pattern idea that I've been working on for years. And it's gonna all come together probably in 2023 when we get enough of the programs out that everybody can start to look at it, not as individual programs, but as an entire crazy system. So people can then start to lay it out, and then different people will lay it out, and no 2 people will ever lay out the system in the same way. It's always been meant to be a choose your own adventure thing. And because people have different starting points for different programs, there's no way that people can line up unless they all started the same programs on the same days with the same weights, which is very unlikely to happen. Pat says the sound is good. Good. I didn't check on that earlier. I should have checked on that. Mark Artigas Vale. When will the single hand heavy club program be out? I'm going to try and work on shooting a bunch of that at the end of January after we get back from Thailand. That puts it in about 3 weeks. I wanted to shoot a bunch of it in Thailand, but I couldn't get my camera guy there. My camera guy had some medical issues, so we're going to try and find a place in the California mountains to shoot it. We'll find out. It's mostly done. I mean, the math is all done, but it needs to be formalized from the insanity that I write down into a readable PDF. So what I've been doing is been working with an editor to make my insanity more understandable. As you will see in the basis of strength PDF, it's probably one of the nicest PDFs we've put out so far. There's the least amount of crazy rambling going on and probably the clearest articulation of information yet. I'm trying to get better at communicating. I used to communicate with engineers in technical writing kind of stuff, and then I worked in movies for a long time. So I have very crazy communication styles about what needs to be where, and I need to make it all more understandable. So the single arm club program has been written. I've been working on that program as long as I've been working on the two-handed club program. And it's, last time I checked, the path was 25 pages long for 3 weights. So I need to figure out how to make that more articulate and better, but it's mostly shot, but I need to go through and I need to shoot explainers and I need to shoot all the stuff around the core information that makes it understandable to people. So hopefully I will be shooting that at the end of January, and then hopefully we can get that out March-ish. But thus far, my timelines, I shoot for the stars and I'm not quite hitting them all the time, right? We wanted basis of strength to be out by Thanksgiving, and here we are at Christmas. So I need another employee desperately. I need more people to help me do this stuff because it's so much editing, so much video work, because I'm trying to make them super duper duper complete. These programs are vastly bigger than anything anybody else is putting out. Vastly bigger. I mean, there were nearly 1,000 raw videos for the basis of strength program, which is a lot of editing and color correcting and everything else. And so we're working on it. It's all coming out, guys. And then there will be a kettlebell path that goes straight forward. We haven't even talked about advanced kettlebell path yet. We have the two-handed club path, which has a very good thing. Essentially, we have 10 levels. We have 3 levels of middle squat. We have 7 levels of basis of strength. So that program is well laid out. And then we're going to have the single arm club path. And then when we get around to it, there's going to be the Mace path. And I have a whole nother awesome path also planned. We also have the slam ball path. But there's a whole nother awesome path, which we haven't talked about at all yet, which is a metronome path, which is super cool. Merry Christmas from Ireland. Thank you, Pythonic Inertia. I love that name. It's fantastic. Melanie Ponchi Diaz. She says hello. She's willing to begin learning kettlebell. Any advice? Yes. Go to our kettlebell playlist, which is numbered, and it goes kettlebell 1, and I think it's up to kettlebell 38 or 39 now. Start doing those videos. Do one a day. Repeat the one you did the previous day so you see the information. Once you get up in there somewhere, then start into a swing program, the kettlebell swing program. I wrote a giant kettlebell swing program because it should take you 3 years, or you can go up with a swing program easily for 3 years. So start with the free information that is on YouTube. It's numbered. I made a playlist, and they're numbered to be taught in order. Then go to the swing program, then go to the clean and press program, then go to the Turkish Get Up Master program. You now have easily 3 to 4 years of training right there, where you can start clear and concise with free information, learn all the important stuff, take the step, get into the science-based programming, write your data down. So every time you do a workout, you will write it down, and you will continue to get better for at least the next 3 to 4 years, even if you do it just the short way. That's the advice. Free information. I put out tons of it. I also have, outside of that numbered playlist, there's probably another 200 kettlebell videos that are not in any specific order, but do the ordered videos first. They are numbered for a reason so that people can start at the beginning and start learning their basic technique. We also have videos on how to select weights. Usually, Melanie, you would start with, it could be a 6K if you're training on your own. Bells of Steel and Pro Kettlebell have awesome competition sized bells and those light weights, and you'll go 6, 8, 10, 12. If you get up to the 12 with a Turkish Get Up program, you are absolutely killing it. Never got rid of that cough. Yeah, so there you go. There's your path forward. Like Shona Duit et Erin. Sorry, I'm trying to say my Gaelic properly. I have no idea how to pronounce Gaelic properly. Where do you want us to send basis of strength edits? The email. There should be a contact email there. Thank you guys. We need those basis of strength edits. There is one video that's out of place in the basis of strength. It's the shield cast. Out of all the videos, it's level 2 exercise 4 or 5. The shield cast doesn't match any of the other stuff because somehow out of all the videos, that's the one I messed up. The most important one is the one I messed up. So send all those edits to the contact, and we will compile them and then start putting out our updates for all of our errors. The program is so big, it's inevitable that I will create errors inside of it from simply looking at it too long. When you look at something that complex for that long, you're simply unable to see what is immediately obvious to somebody else. So yes, please send it all to the contact page. On Kajabi, the contact page on Kajabi on the download portal. Nayamin, love that name. Question, with doing martial arts, you mentioned spending 2 years on each one, Krav, BJJ, Muay Thai. What are your thoughts on revisiting each one after 2 years? Absolutely. You're never done with martial arts. The idea of getting people to do 2 years of those martial arts is very simple. Krav Maga focuses on basics and on training mental training, aggression. It focuses on turning around because almost all the bad guys in the world are behind you, right? Predators attack from behind. They also tend to do bare hand, so people learn to close their fist all the way and hit. It is not the most technical martial art. The goal is to teach people essentially savagery in Krav Maga, as I understand the idea. You have the punch, the hammer fist, the elbow, the palm heel. You have the front kick, the round kick, the kick to the groin, and the driving knee. And you are going to combine those things together. It's exactly the same thing that I teach, but I teach mine in a mathematical way. Krav training is a group training strategy. And it does a lot of hit the guy behind you, walk to the target, hit. Absolutely essential for people to learn to turn around. The problem with BJJ is there's not a lot of turning around and hitting the guy behind you, right? BJJ is your ground engagement wrestling, and it's very good. You're going to learn to contend with people who are not agreeing with you. That is the point of rolling. BJJ classes tend to be structured, not always, but tend to be structured with introduction where people work on a technique, and then you have several rounds of rolling with people in the class where you are straight up wrestling with somebody who's not agreeing and not letting you do something. They're trying to wrestle you. They're trying to win as well. So people are going to learn the aggression part in Krav Maga. They're going to learn to turn to face. They're going to learn to hit without gloves on. In BJJ, they will learn the intricacies of ground technique, or start to learn to contend with people of different body sizes and of different levels of skill to learn what they need to do. That links. So in Krav Maga, when you get into, I don't know, level 2, then you start to work on ground defense, getting down to the ground. In Krav, they want you to try to get up, because when people are attacked, they tend not to be attacked by one person. So the main idea in Krav is to get up. It's buck, trap, roll. But if you do end up on the ground with somebody, this is excellent for females, it's excellent for everybody, then you should know more about the wrestling, the ground engagement part. Therefore, BJJ. And you're training with non-compliant individuals. Then something like Muay Thai, which is going to take strikes and things that you learn in Krav Maga, and it's going to ramp them way up. People are going to learn to kick harder. They're going to learn to kick somebody directly in front of them. They're going to learn to block better, because Muay Thai is very specifically a striking art with the 8 weapons, right? Knees, legs, elbows, hands, right? Yeah, I'm saying that right. And then, go back and revisit them. You're never done. Go take judo. The whole idea of getting people to do 2 years of each thing is that each one of those martial arts is going to teach people something specific that I think people need to know. And because they specialize, they teach those things better than anybody else. But then, sure, go back to Krav Maga, because Krav Maga is the only place I know that encourages people to defend their own life against weapons. You're not going to learn gun takeaways in Muay Thai. You're not going to learn it. Well, you might in Gracie Combatives, but I don't know. I've never seen Gracie Combatives. I only heard about it. I don't know how they deal with stand-up gun takeaways. No idea. What I know is that Krav Maga encourages people to try to save their own life, which I think is super important. I talk about this a lot in my seminars. I teach staff because they're not going to teach you staff at Krav Maga. They're not going to teach you staff at BJJ, and they're not going to teach you staff at Muay Thai. So I picked something that I think nobody else is teaching effectively and well, which is staff, machete, and baseball bat. And then starting from staff, go to machete, go to baseball bat, then lead those back towards empty hand techniques. So each thing does something very specifically very well. So you should learn that. I teach something that I think that people need to know as well, because bad guys tend to have things in their hands, weapons. So you need to learn how to deal with that mentally, emotionally, psychologically, the whole thing. So the whole idea of getting people to do 2 years of each thing is just to expose them to the information so that they can then choose what thing they want to focus on themselves. I'm trying to trick people into creating their own martial art on accident, which is what kind of it is. A style of a martial art is where somebody studied a bunch of stuff and then they picked something they wanted to focus on and then they got deeper into that. That is what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. It is Jiu-Jitsu from Japan, where they focused almost exclusively on the ground was of the ground game, and they expanded it and got way, 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 way better at it than the original art. So do that and then go back and repeat and then keep doing martial arts. Usually after you do those three things, you will then be able to determine what is good coaching and what is not on your own. Nobody will have to explain it to you. You'll figure it out, and then you'll figure out which martial arts schools aren't worth going to just by looking at them. I won't have to tell you. Nobody will have to tell you. You'll know. Excellent question, Naimeen. Thank you very much. That was a great one. Ryan Kahela. Question on volume cycles. Excellent labeling. Thank you. What factors do you think of when deciding the reps sets for the start of a volume cycle for a particular exercise? I think about strength training. So I think 3 to 5 reps. I almost always treat it that way because the goal is to get people to do strength endurance. So in the beginning, 3 to 5 reps is about the level that I want you to be at. 5 reps should be generally hard, or 3 reps, depending on which weights you have available to you. But usually it's in the 3 to 5 rep range because it is strength training. If you can do 15 reps with a club, it's not heavy enough. You need to find a heavier club because the 15 rep club for single hand, I'm talking single hand for club right now. If you can do 15 reps, then it is not heavy enough to force you into the correct position, to force you into the correct alignment. And we see this a lot when you see people who start doing things like fancy club swinging, or I see it a lot with circus performers who do like fire poi. They can do all these super complex movements, but they still don't line up very well because the weight was never heavy enough for them to line up. So if you can do something for 5 minutes on day one, it's not heavy enough. So we are trying to make it strength training. So we're picking our volume cycle numbers in the 3 to 5 rep range, and then we're stacking volume on top of that because it's strength endurance. That is the definition of what we're trying to do. So I'm always picking in that range. And then I will pick the weight to fit that range. As a coach, that's my job, is to pick the weight to fit that range. Great questions, guys. KD, question. Another question probably from the Discord. Why are very heavy weights worth the extra time money? If you stop mill squat at 25 pounds, what am I missing on that I would get working with 50 pounds or 80 pounds? You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. If you get up to the 25-pound club, then you will have learned the basics pretty well of moving. When you go up in weight, you're just forced better structural alignment. And I'm always trying to train. If I want to be able to use the 25-pound forever without getting tired, I need to double that number, right? So if I want my 50% weight to be 25 pounds, then I need to get to 50 pounds in order to be able to pick up the 25 and not put it down for an hour. So the whole point of that going up in weight is that you raise what your 50% is. So if you do 25 pounds as your max, then your 50% is really 12 and a half. 15 is in your 65% range forever. And that's fine. That's more than excellent. Most people are not going to run into stuff that's that heavy. I just want people to push. Because when people go up in weight with club swinging, they're going to learn a lot about biomechanical alignment that I am never going to have to teach them. And they are going to get way better at lining up their body in a bunch of disparate, weird activities. One of the guys I talk to all the time, Red Forest Chinese boxing, we talk about Kung Fu all the time because we are nerds. We're nerds. And so we talk a lot about different types of historical training. I think it was last night, we were talking about the ancient Beijing system of stone lifting, which is our equivalent to sandbags or slam ball, Chinese stone padlock, which is kettlebells, heavy halberd, which is mace and club, and they have archery pulling, which is their version of rows, which I would replace with something like aerial. And people have always seen the value of being way stronger than they need to be, because it means that endurance with the weights that you will encounter in the real world becomes much, much, much higher. That's originally the idea behind kettlebell lifting as well. Historically, armors or loadouts for soldiers throughout history have been in the 50 to 70 pound range. So what you will notice is that kettlebells, the primary weights are 24K at the low, is what everybody should be able to do, and 32K, which is what the advanced athletes in Russia did. And then what did they do? They put one in each hand and they doubled it, which meant that if you were using double 24s, then just 50 pounds got really light to people. And if you were using double 32s or 140 pounds, then a 70-pound loadout got a lot more manageable for an infinite amount of time. So the idea of going up with the heavy clubs is to make you better at it. The goal of getting people up to that 50 is that the 25 becomes a lightweight lever forever. And then if you made that lever longer, then that 15-pound mace becomes generally light forever. That means that that 12-pound sledgehammer becomes light forever. When you go into the 80-pound club range, now 40 pounds becomes light forever. The point of clubs that's different than kettlebells is the length of the lever changes the way you line up. And I think the entire thing that I talk about, the premise of everything, is that if you accidentally just do kettlebells and clubs and go up in weight, those two things will add up between like dead, how do I say this? Like levers, which are tools, become easy to use forever. Things like pickaxes, digging holes, things like that become very easy to do forever. And picking up objects like bales of hay or bags of grain or flats of groceries or boxes of nails becomes easy forever. So that's the whole idea. You go up in weight. You don't have to, but the idea is to get people up. Men should at least be doing a 50-pound club for the two-hand program. Do you have to go above 50? No. But it would be great. You're going to be stronger forever because you've raised your 50% forever. That was a great question too. Man, you guys have great questions today. Excellent. Jamie Falk. That's a statement. Wilson, question on martial arts. I love the labels. What's your take on people claiming traditional Eastern martial arts are not truly effective in comparison to those commonly found within MMA? Curious due to your experience. I think that those people don't understand traditional Eastern martial arts. So here's something hilarious about traditional Eastern martial arts. Everything in MMA has already been done, and it's all in Shaolin Long Fist Kung Fu. All of it, everything that they do. And you'll start to see it now coming out in the ring. Maybe I should start posting these things on Instagram when I find them. Me, once again, Red Forest Chinese Boxing, message these things back and forth to each other all the time. And I also message back and forth with my friend Amina the Warrior, who's a Russian Wushu champion, where there are movements in Wushu that are done. So think about, let me back this up. Traditional Eastern martial arts have all the techniques of modern MMA. Those techniques are taught to people in a series of movements, a form. That form, think of it like people memorizing epic poetry. So people are practicing the movements without another person there because it allows them to learn a set. And within that set, there are specific movements. There are sweeps, reaps, throws, kicks, jumps, covering ground, all these things that somebody found useful. Those forms tend to be designed by some great martial artist who found a series of movements that he thought were the most effective. So he organized them into a form like a poem so that people could memorize it. And even if they lost the meaning of the poem, simply by practicing it, people would be able to rediscover those movements in the future. So all of the Shaolin movements, these double overhand things, all these cool things, all these steps and rotations are all techniques that are just hidden. They're hidden in poetry. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I heard the dog squeal upstairs. Sorry, I hear the dog squeal upstairs. I want to make sure I'm not getting a delivery or something. So people who say that traditional Asian martial arts aren't effective just haven't looked at them. All the same movements are there. So if you look at the movements in something like Kung Fu, you will see the movements of Beijing wrestling. Xiao Jiao, I'm butchering that word. And those movements you will find in things like Muay Thai, like people going over, doing a double clinch and reaping and throwing at the same time. That's a movement that's in Shaolin. It's in Muay Thai. It's in MMA. All the reaps, all the movements in Judo are hidden somewhere in Kung Fu forms. The angle is slightly different and the style is different, but the throws are almost exactly the same. Yeah, so the problem with what people think about Asian martial arts is that originally, you'll hear about this with like Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee wanted to teach people the real version of Asian martial arts, and he was shunned by the community, the Asian community in San Francisco, because he was teaching us people, the non-Chinese heritage people, the real application of martial arts, whereas a lot of Asian teachers were teaching people just the flowery movement and form because they didn't want to make us stronger as an opposing cultural group or something. But you can see it now, you can find it now all over the place. You follow a lot of the Shaolin pages on Instagram, which I love to do, of course, and you'll see all the movements, the double steps, the throws, the reaps, and everything. And then if you've done Kung Fu, you've practiced those forms. You go, there it is. It's right there. In Asian martial arts, there's a way that you think about it. There are three movements, probably a strike, a throw, and a reap or something for each individual movement inside any one form. And that's why you see different masters do the same form differently, because they're emphasizing different parts of the technique, or they've changed the same poetry technique into some other real world application. So to people who think that MMA is superior, MMA is a recreation of what already existed, and that's awesome because they are experimentally recreating Kung Fu on their own. And the longer MMA goes on, the closer it will look to Shaolin. The same thing is true of Krav Maga. Krav Maga looks incredibly, incredibly similar to me as a practitioner of Long Fist. They share so many concepts, it's crazy. So there's only so many ways to move the human body: 2 arms, 2 legs. There are some crazy outlier styles out there, but Long Fist was meant for big, strong people who are well conditioned to battle each other. It's the same thing as MMA. And then over time, people created different styles to defeat people who are bigger than them. Something like what Bruce Lee did, which was Wing Chun, was invented by a nun because she couldn't out-punch guys my size. So she created a martial art for small people to beat big people to the punch. All of these ideas are going to roll in history, and eventually people will say that MMA doesn't work. It'll get too flowery or whatever, and it'll go on. It just keeps going on in circles. It'll loop forever. It'll loop forever. I can talk about MMA and martial arts and stuff all day, but the Eastern martial arts have all the stuff you just have to know what you are looking at, and then you have to actually put it into the MMA style training where you train with another non-willing participant. Well, first with a willing participant so you can get to the right spot, and then against a person who's not agreeing with you so you can figure out how to make those movements work. That is the problem that most people have had in martial arts. They think that practicing their forms is going to make them able to see what's coming, and they can't. MMA guys are outrunning their brain because they just practice getting to the point, hitting the target. So they're outrunning the brains of people who are not doing that. But you're seeing a lot of that coming back, especially in China. What's the Chinese kickboxing with throws? Crap. Red Force is going to kick the crap out of me. Sanda's brutal. Go watch Sanda. Sanda is going to take over the world. Sanda is going to take over the world because it is kickboxing with throws, right? But they're not having people go down into ground game. But people did Sanda. It's just super hard to find, right? Finding Sanda is incredibly difficult, but Sanda dudes are dope. I know that there's a Sanda place, I think in Arizona, in Flagstaff. I went with Amina the Warrior to a thing there. It must have been 2019, a fight there. It was cool. If I could train Sanda, I'd train Sanda every day. If there's anybody who does Sanda in Ohio, let me know. Continuing with questions. We have some great questions today, guys. We're already at 51 minutes. I can talk about this nerd stuff all day long. Mobility question from KD. Side delt and rotator cuff pain when right hand tries to reach behind the back from waist to touch opposite scap with back of hand. There's way too much in that question for me to answer this way. That is a well-written question, but I'm not going to try to tackle that one right now. Somebody send me that question, and we'll have to think about that one because I'll have to think about all that. That's a lot of information in a short period. Well-written, but not great for a live. Jason Hilo. That's a statement. Scott P. Question for skiing. This is going to be good. Question for skiing. I'd love to build as much explosive leg strength as possible. Aside from swing squats and lunges, any other good exercises using kettlebell or club that you suggest? Absolutely. Deck squats all day long. Deck squats, single leg deck squats to box jump. And for skiing, you should absolutely be doing your clubs, inside circles, outside circles, and pendulums all day. And you should go as heavy as possible as you can safely do in the progression to build up your inside and outside hip snap. Before lockdown, I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything in before lockdown time. I was going up to Whistler and doing snowboarding and stuff just so I could sit down and watch skiers and snowboarders and then try it and then think about training for it. Heavy club swinging, inside circles, outside circles, shield kettlebells are all your way. And then your single leg pistol progressions, which would mean like sitting on a deck squat elevated to single leg pistol to jump. Stuff like that. I mean, I think that deck squat is the best thing for almost all things. That's why I always call deck squats the greatest squat in the world. Because when you ski, if you mess it up, you get all the way down to the ground. Then you got to get all the way back up. The same exact thing is true with snowboard. And your feet tend to be locked into place. So you need that full range of movement. So you can do the deck squat to box jump. I've never made a video on that, but it's the full range of movement rolling. So think about a deck squat where you take the kettlebell out of it, or a super light kettlebell, and then put a box jump on the other side. Fantastic, because you force your core to engage, you force flexion of the spine, and then you force extension of the spine. to get all the way through it, and it's full range of movement legs. The other more basic version of that would just be a target box jump. So box jump, but a target for your squat depth at the bottom, as low as you can get it. Usually a med ball, sit down, touch the med ball, and then do your box jump. It's going to be lower reps usually because you're focusing on that pure explosive power, and then lower that box over time. All great ideas. Skiing and snowboarding are awesome. I love them. I was never had enough money or a place to do them when I was young, so I started trying to do them just after I got into movies, because there's a famous actor that I met, and had gotten into snowboarding and would go and do snowboarding. So we would talk about snowboarding. So he got me into the idea of like, go get a coach for snowboarding. And what he would do is he would go get a coach for one day. Then the next day he would go out on his own, and then coaching, and then on his own, and then coaching, and then on his own. And he, very, very successful actor. And he would do that for months at a time, like the whole winter, and just became an absolute beast monster snowboarder in like a year and a half, and did all of his training to support that. So I sat around and thought about all the things that you would need to do that. And the answer is almost always kettlebells, clubs, and like hex bar deadlift. Hex bar deadlift also being incredible for that. Excellent. Thank you for that question on skiing. Chris Buckle. This is just a general point comment, but I like these comments. Says, since he's been doing single arm club circles and shield casts with a 10-kilogram club, his arms have blown up to enormous proportions. This will happen. This certainly happens to men because the weights are really high. Your arms will look exactly how your arms are supposed to look. There's no way out. Think about clubbing as a hard gainer's dream exercise. It's all arms, it's all abs, it's all glutes. The only thing that it doesn't really do is like shoulder cap, which is really a modern thing that people really like, shoulder cap. But you will end up with arms. It's impossible to not end up with arms. If you do mill squat program or basis of strength program, impossible. If you do single arm club training of any type, it is impossible not to get good arm development. We've talked about this before. You're not going to get a really peaky bicep because you're not doing that curl and rotate at the top, but your arm is always in that 90-degree angle, so you will get a long, thick bicep. If you wanted to get peaky biceps at the end, then you would get like one of the arm blasters. It's an aluminum bar that goes across your body, and you would do peaky exercises right at the end after everything, but that might detract from your next day's training, which is why I tend not to do it, because I don't want to be that sore, because I want to do next day's training. And then if you alternate your clubs, which is focused on flexion, and your kettlebells, which is focused on extension, they tend to balance each other out and keep people from getting a bunch of elbow injuries on just by accident, just by doing it in that order. Any live classes in the Denver area? We should find that. Somebody on here, we're going to do a seminar somewhere in Denver. I just been too busy to properly schedule it. But I would love to do some classes. I love Colorado. I've spent a ton of time in Colorado over the years, mostly in the Central Valley, far away from the hubbub that is Denver. Like, I don't even know my way around Denver, but I know my way around everything else. In the Central Valley, all the way down to like Albuquerque and across like Wolf Creek Pass and all that stuff. But I would love to do seminars out there, but probably after the snow melts, just because travel there in the winter months can be a nightmare. But yeah, we should do some stuff in Denver. I need to get in my email now that I've Basis of Strength is out. I can sit down and actually look at that email. I get so focused, I just have so many things on my to-do list. I can put things down and forget about them for 2 months in the effort to get other things done. Oh, here's a great one. Guy Diaz, question, landmines. Do you think landmine barbell exercises are worthwhile? Absolutely. Absolutely. So landmine is a barbell on a pivot point at the bottom. But what do you notice about the basic landmine exercises? You're right, they're clean and press. They are clean and press with an explosive leg change. They are absolutely fantastic. And I have some plates now. I got whatever, 330 pounds worth of plates. I'm going to call Bells of Steel and get a plain old barbell. I had a landmine in my old gym. I have no idea where it is. I haven't seen it in 2 years now, so I'm going to have to get a barbell and a landmine. And we're going to start talking about landmine. I think landmine is another one of those great things. Crossbody stabilization. You'll notice when you do the landmine clean, your thumb is pointed back like it is in kettlebelling into an explosive press, which is cross body load, and they do it very well with effective jumping leg changes. Fantastic. Landmine is amazing. I haven't talked about it because when we really started doing a lot of videos, it was lockdown. So we focused on the things that were the cheapest and the easiest and that people could do inside. Because I was solving an engineering equation. Kettlebells are the easiest for people to get. They're the cheapest. They provide the most benefit. So in that first year, we talked about adding a lot of complexity to kettlebell movements if you didn't have more weights. So we talked a lot about high hand changes, low hand changes around the leg, not putting the weight down for long periods of time, because the assumption was that people only had maybe one weight. And then we did a lot of stuff with clubbing for the same reason, and then maces for the same reason. Maces are dirt cheap, and you can add an infinite amount of complexity to them. And then in year 2, we started working a lot more on integrating those ideas, slam balls, sandbags, things like that. But once again, still being things that could be done in more contained space that don't require a gym. And now in 2023, we're going to focus more on a lot more of the other stuff. We're going to continue our kettlebell instruction. We're going to do it in order. Same with our club instruction, in order. But we're also going to be talking about hex bar and about landmine and about a bunch of other stuff. There's a bunch of really cool stuff out there. And now that people have maybe more disposable income, people are back to work, people aren't locked down, then I think we're going to talk a lot about that. I think landmine is a very, very, very good thing. And I think that the math is easy and it focuses on the most important things, which is really clean and press. And it just does it at a different angle than kettlebells and clubs. So joint angle determines muscle firing. So instead of going up, it's going forward. And I think that that's of huge benefit, massive. I love landmine. So I need to get one here, and maybe we'll start working on that after I get back from Thailand and after that shoot, and that little interstitial period before I go to the UK. Jonathan Peters, American Swing question. He has a moderate TOS, the original series. This sounds like a Star Trek. Thoracic, I don't know, TOS tissue issue in the American style two-handed swing is really helpful. Any advice you might have on this movement pattern? So the American swing. So the Russian swing is a kettlebell swing that goes to shoulder height or below. The American swing goes all the way up overhead. It was invented by, as far as I know, CrossFitters. So think of it as a two-handed snatch, where the bell does not fall over the back. It stays pointed straight up the entire time. I don't talk much about American swings at all, because it's very hard to coach it for people who have limited mobility without killing them. Most people don't have upper thoracic extension, so they get the movement to get the bell up from their lower back. And they release their core and they compress their lower back. You will see the CrossFitters who do American swings tend to be gymnasts, and they do a lot of gymnast training. So they have good thoracic extension, and you'll notice their rib cage stays down and their core stays on the entire time. That is the key thing to doing an American swing, is having the mobility to do it. That would mean doing a lot of hanging leg raises, and kipping pull-ups, because kipping pushes the chest through the bar, creates openness in the shoulders, and then when they do like a kipping toes to bar, they extend the spine and they flex the spine. So people who do that stuff tend to be okay with American swings. I, of course, think that you should do heavy club swinging to rotate the spine to make sure that people can engage the core. But I don't talk about American swings that much, because the American swing, to me, as a kettlebeller, is a knockoff, is the version of a snatch where people didn't have to learn to do the catch correctly. It has its place in CrossFit for absolute sure, for people who are doing the complementary training. But will I talk about American swings on my channel? Probably not, because an American swing is a snatch that you had to work on less. Whoa, Plymouth MI Pete just gave us a $99 donation. Thanks, bud. Thank you guys very much for contributing to the channel. We appreciate it. Thank you, Rip Dime 13, as well, for the donation to the channel. And thank you to KD for the channel. Man, Scott P. Boy, people are really donating today. Thanks, guys. So the American swing question, I'm going to leave that to somebody who knows a lot more about American swings, and that would probably be some type of CrossFit coach. I tell people who are doing American swings to start doing volume cycles of snatches, because you're taking the two-hand exercise, which is symmetrical load on the core, and you turn it into one hand and counter rotation. So your overall training effect tends to be better in a shorter period of time. The American swing is fantastic in CrossFit, because instead of going to shoulder height, they take it all the way up. The further the kettlebell falls, the more speed it picks up, that essentially the heavier it is at the bottom. So the more they are decelerating the weight at the bottom to snap it back up. But it's the same thing as a snatch, but with two hands on, without the catch, without the crossbody stabilization. So if you're going to work on something like two-hand American swings, you should be working on a lot of hanging from a bar, driving your chest through, what do they call them, C and Ds, chest through and then collapse, chest through and collapse, to work on your spinal mobility, and then work on your toes to bar. I haven't talked about that on my channel because I haven't had a place to do toes to bar since I never had one in my studio. And I haven't been in Gambate in forever now, Gambate Fitness in LA. But that would be the things you need. You need a squat rig that's high enough that you can hang with straight arms and without your feet touching the ground, in order to, I think, get the most out of something like American swings. Interesting question. Thank you, Jonathan Peters. Wildman question. Okay, I don't know what that means. Shrewd 42. At what point in your life would you consider yourself in the best shape? What was your programming training? What do you consider your greatest feat of strength? Well, my greatest feat of strength was a 35-foot rope climb in a perfect L-sit every night when I did a circus show in the cornfield in downtown Los Angeles. Stage, rope on either side of the stage. You come in from off stage, circle the rope, me and another guy, my coach, who is incredibly strong, brutally strong, and one hand up, circle, lift into a perfect L, climb all the way to the top on beat, and then invert, hook, and then what was the roll drop? I don't remember. But that is incredibly hard. That took a long time to train for, and almost thrashed my elbows entirely doing it. That's an incredible amount of force as somebody who's in the 220-pound range. Climbing on beat is the hard part. So you have to climb on beat with the music. So you have to reach up, extend, hold, pull, catch, pull, catch, pull. And you're doing it without the use of your legs. Your body is in an L shape. So your legs are up at 90 degrees, your toes are perfectly pointed, your legs are perfectly straight, and they don't get to waver the entire time. So it's iron body climbing on the beat. I consider that to be probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I was not in my best shape then because I was newer to circus and I was just getting the crap kicked out of me. And we were overtraining a lot. And I was trying to, that's back when I still believed that you had to lift super heavy kettlebells. So I was lifting 90-pound kettlebells and doing trapeze and everything else. And I was just ripping the skin out of my hands every day. I don't think the holes in my hands closed for like 3 or 4 months. I was definitely way, way, way overtrained. Best shape I've ever been in. Well, it's kind of hard to say. Went back when I did kung fu for 2 hours every day. It was incredibly good shape. But I didn't know about kettlebells and clubs back then. So I was riding a bike all over LA, bicycle, cycling everywhere, doing kung fu for 2 hours every day, and doing like kung training, just like movement training with weights. I was in good shape, but I was not as strong as I could have ever been because I didn't know about Chinese stone padlock, which is kettlebell, because nobody taught it. I don't know. Maybe in 2017 when I first got my 60-pound club and I was doing a perfect path of the basis of strength program. Not really, because that was like we were working 14 hours a day, weren't really getting to sleep. I don't know. Probably the best I ever looked was in like 2006 and 2007 when I was doing a ton of super heavy snatch training, kung fu, and circus. But before I shredded my hands, and I was doing club every day. That was probably the best. Best I looked. It was not the best training by far because there was a lot of injuries in there from way overtraining everything. Yeah. Yeah, let's stop talking about me. KD, yoga question. Is 2 days a week of vinyasa flow yoga and 4 days of club and kettlebell an effective way to add yoga to my programming? Absolutely, yes. I do 20 minutes of static yoga cool downs on club and kettlebell days. Absolutely. I tend not to talk about yoga a lot. I talk about just stretching because that's the most accessible thing for most people to do. If you have access to yoga, good yoga instruction, even bad yoga instruction will work. I talk about a time controlled cool down, right? 10 minutes, 12 minutes, pushing it 20 minutes. A yoga class can be an hour to an hour and a half long, and it requires travel to and from yoga class. But yoga class is super annoying to almost everybody because it's going to find something that you are not good at and it's going to make you stretch that thing out. I don't go to yoga because I'm taking care of family right now. I don't have the time or the energy with all the things I do to go to yoga. Do I encourage other people to go to yoga? Absolutely. The same way why I would encourage people to go to Pilates, the same way I encourage people to go to jujitsu, the same way I encourage people to do anything, go ride a horse or do anything. Outside instruction tends to find something that you don't want to do as an athlete and force you to do it by being in a group setting, which is good. It's awful mentally and you hate it for the first 3 months because you don't want to work on the thing that's tight. But by going to yoga, yoga is a good idea. There are versions of yoga in Shaolin Long Fist. There's certain series of poses. They are done less for the poses of yoga tend to be done in Kung Fu as stance work and then combined into movement. Think about like Kung Fu as being a fight specific version of Vinyasa flow yoga. Vinyasa flow, because it has the concept of ahimsa or nonviolence towards all living things, tends not to be focused on the violent part. Whereas Kung Fu is Don't hurt me and I won't hurt you. I'm getting off on my Kung Fu tangents again. But I highly encourage people to do yoga, to practice yoga poses, to understand it. I mean, I'm part of a yoga school, right? I teach with Flow Shala, and that is originally a yoga school where the concept of that school itself was that people are missing some important aspect of yoga, which is the gata swing or the mace swing. And Flow Shala and steel mace yoke, what do we call it? I have no idea. I'm messing it up. I should know. I'm the instructor. I get these words messed up. Putting steel mace back into asana, which is stance work. But yeah, pure practice of yoga cool down is absolutely something people should do. Absolutely. The more you know about it, the better off your life is going to be. It's another one of those paths forward that helps people learn to ferret out something that they don't want to work on. So there are basic series of poses in yoga, the same way that Kung Fu has a basic series of stances. But Kung Fu is just towards violence, and yoga's is towards lengthening and strengthening the body, to yoke the mind, to yoke the body, to yoke the mind, to yoke the spirit. Am I saying this right? I don't know. Yes, do yoga. That's the answer. Are there any mobility requirements for Bodyweight 101? Specifically, does an individual need to be able to do a squat without holding a weight? We would like you to, but if you want to hold a weight, hold a weight. The whole point of Bodyweight 101 is Bodyweight 101 is not comprehensive, right? Because writing a bodyweight comprehensive program is nearly impossible. Bodyweight 101 focuses on the things that I think that people need to work on that I don't think that they are working on with other types of training. So there's lots of hip drops, outside lunges, bodyweight squat, I think, is in there. If you want to squat to a target, squat to a target. That's fine. The goal is just to get people introduced to the idea of bodyweight training so that they can then move forward. All of my bodyweight training is specifically designed towards specific types of get-ups because it's the most accessible thing that people do. So Bodyweight 101 is just introduction to some bodyweight movements in a trainable format so that people can get better at it over time. And then Krav 1, we start to take that body weight and we put it into a specific format, a get-up that you absolutely need to know. I think is one of the most human get-ups. And then a judo get-up, and then Krav get-up 2, which is more advanced. And then there will be a screwing push-up get-up. And then eventually there will be a burpee get up. But we're focusing the plans on breaking down specific human movements that people need to be able to do for defense of self, because I think that that's the most useful basic thing that humans should work on. And then breaking that down into a trainable, repeatable format. So just start Bodyweight 101. If you need to hold a weight in front of you to keep you from falling backwards, to help you counterbalance, go ahead and do it. If you need to squat to a target, go ahead and do it. The main goal is to get people started. If people don't start, they cannot get better. So all of these programs are designed to get people moving so that they can get into it, so they can master one individual thing. And if you get really good at just like a Krav get up, you can get up quickly and effectively in a Krav get up, you're already helping yourself out. We're picking specific useful athletic skills with every program, and then we're making sure that people learn how to do that. We are trying to ensure success, because people get good at one thing, then they'll want to get good at something else, then they'll want to get good at something else, and eventually they'll find something else entirely to get good at. But if most programs in bodyweight training are not specifically goal oriented, do 500 push-ups a day, what does it get you other than an ability to do push-ups? I would rather, push-ups are awesome and great, but I would rather you do a Krav get up and learn to get up off of the ground, because I know a lot of people who can do push-ups who can't get up off of the ground. So start Bodyweight 101 wherever you need to and just move forward. Track your numbers. If you're using a weight, write it down. Here's a question. VJS. So this is an interesting question. VJS is hitting a plateau. He usually does step ups, dumbbell rows, suitcase deadlifts, lunges, and his body seems to react lesser now. Also, slowly adding weight. What do you suggest I change? If access to a basic gym. Well, what you've just listed is very interesting. You've listed step ups, classic gym, dumbbell rows, classic gym, suitcase deadlifts, not classic gym, but done in a gym, lunges. Those are all individual things. Where's the clean and press? Where is the burpee? Where is the Krav get up? Where is the box jump? So what I highly recommend you do, VJS, is pick a program that focuses on something specific and start doing it. You can do a body weight program in a gym. You can just do it. No big deal. There's always a stretching area. You can do that. I think like a lunge, what is a lunge a part of? Ask yourself these questions. Why are you doing lunges? What can you add to your lunges to make them better? Everything on this channel is about something like that. I encourage people to learn skills, not just to exercise. Exercise is one thing, but people exercise their entire life and will forever move, how do I say this? Like shit. They will move like shit. People go to the gym and they work out because they want to be athletic, because they want to look athletic, because they want to feel athletic. So do athlete stuff. Lunges are great, but lunges are a support issue to something else. What is the something else that you are doing or striving for? You could just do all of that stuff and add in a Krav Get Up program and do Krav Get Up twice a week and do your gym stuff the other days of the week, and it would work out. You could do a mill squat program with a club, do your gym stuff, do a Krav Get Up program, and then you would start to focus on something individual so that you can get good at it. You have to pick something to get good at if you want to move ahead. Doing what you've listed are all good exercise choices. But what is the point? We don't want to do mindless exercise. We want to do mindful exercise. We want our exercise to be part of a greater idea. If you're doing a lunge, you need to do a lunge and put a hand on the ground. You need to do a lunge, put a hand on the ground, do a hip drop. Now you need to lift your hip up, pull straight back into a plank, put your hand on the ground, come up in a lunge, stand up and do a front kick. You need to build out. So when people do like a basic weightlifting program that you would hear about, right? Like collegiate athletes do barbell programs, but they don't just do barbell programs. They do a barbell program and track. They do a barbell program and football. They do a barbell program and swimming. There has to be some other point to those generally generic gym exercises if you want to keep going and have things to do forever. The point of learning a skill is that you're never done. I grew up riding horses. My main goal in life right now is to get back to the point where I can ride horses every day, to have the land and the space and the money to do that, because you can ride horses every day forever and never run out of things to do. You can change the track that you ride on. You can change the objective of it. You could do jumping, you could do cross country, you could learn dressage, you could do practical horsemanship, you could do practical ranchmanship, you could do mounted archery, you could do all these other things. There's skills that you need to work on. If you're working in the gym, I always tell people, if you don't have a sport that you do, go pick a martial art and then start leaning your training towards that. The basic original sport of all of humanity is don't get hit in the face. And then throw a rock at something else. Those are your two basic sports, hunt and don't be hunted. And then so pick any martial art and then start building your training towards that thing. Just a general idea. Or you could pick ice skating. I don't care what you pick. You could pick skiing, you could pick snowboarding, you could pick it by season. But you need to pick a skill so that your gym training has a focus, so that there's a reason to do lunges. And then that will tell you what type of lunge you need to do. That will tell you what type of press you need to do, because the angles of the sport can be replicated and strengthened through different types of gym training. That's what gym training is supposed to be. Sorry, had to get my Shady Lion coffee in. It's sitting here getting cold. It's in a super insulated cup, but it's been 84 minutes since I've had a sip of it, so I should work on that. Pardon me. Still have that cough. Let's go all the way down to the bottom, get some of the fresh questions at the bottom. People in the middle tend to sometimes get skipped, and I'm sorry about that, but I don't know a better way to do it. Yeah, got to get that cough cleared up. Gavagai. 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 Gavagai? Can't tell if that's Italian or what. Question. Can you do a video on the waiter press? Would a waiter press be helpful with fixing scapular winging? Yeah, I can do a video on waiter press. Waiter press. The most important thing is that the handle is down here touching the base of your arm and that your fingers are cupped up around the back. If it's really weird, you want this third point of contact to let you know where the bell is in space, and your bell's about at a 45-degree angle. When you do your press, you want to maintain that contact the entire time. This puts our wrist into what I like to call more of a palm heel strike position, where you're forward with the bone. So think about setting the kettlebell directly on top of the bones, the heavy part that are going down into your arm, the same way it would be for palm heel strike, the same way when you're doing a normal kettlebell press, you're stacking your bones up as if it's a punch. That third point of contact is very important for you to know where the bell is. If you start with the handle off of your hand and it tips, you don't know how far you can tip before it falls off. So starting with the handle down on your arm means that you always know if your wrist is in the same position. Can it help for scapular winging? Absolutely. The more ways you learn to press, the better you get at pressing. This is one of the classic things that Pavel talked about a lot in the early part of RKC. I don't know what he's talking about now, but it talked about if you want to be good at pressing, you have to practice pressing. And so you find a bunch of different ways to press. And guys used to do single arm press, then they would do waiter press on a different day, then they would do double presses on a third day, then they would start over and they would press 6 days a week. And then they would get good at pressing because they were practicing the skill of pressing. Can it happen? Can it help with scapular winging? Sure, depends. How I think about something like scapular winging is it means that something in your shoulder is not working correctly or it's too tight for the most part. So once again, this is something that I say, but not a lot of other people say, is practice your clubbing, because your clubbing is going to accidentally do a bunch of other stuff, which is going to change the way your scapula and everything else moves simply by practicing another program and then stacking it on top of something like kettlebell press or on top of kettlebell waiter press. So we're trying to average out or picking things that complement each other so that people have to do the least amount of thought and are likely to get the most results just on accident. If you want to, Dr. Caleb Burgess on Instagram talks a lot about shoulder rehab and stuff like that. I'm sure I'm saying that last name wrong. When I read names, I never hear them in my head. I hear words in my head when I read, but when I see names, I just recognize them as a series of letters. But he talks a lot about how to correct scapular winging. There's a whole series of therapy exercises on that, and you can highly encourage you to look those up and to look at them, because different exercises will fix different things. That's why I take the shotgun approach of just teaching people kettlebells and clubs and mace. But if you want to get more specific about what your specific issue is, look at the therapist channels on that. Sorry, that's the best answer I have for that. Stunt mug training just says he just saw the thumbnail for the live stream and recognized it. Boom, somebody finally got it. The thumbnail is Nakatomi Plaza Tower, and it's Christmas. It's not Christmas until Nakatomi Tower Plaza. Hazel Maines, question. Do you have a focus on self-talk mantra, either for your clients or yourself during workouts when there is no opponent, i.e. something to move towards that's beyond just the form cues? No, I don't. Uh, I always talk about form cues. Always talk about form cues. Because it's encouraging people to be present in the moment. If you want to start talking about, if we want to relate this back to like Zen philosophy or something, the idea of being present is thinking about each thing. And a mantra is something where you're saying a word to speak it into existence, for lack of a better, fancier explanation from a yogi. So by telling people, pull elbow to hip, thumb touches shirt, rotate, pull elbow to hip, lock arm out, swing across the bottom, pull elbow to hip, I am encouraging people to be present in each specific micro movement of a motion so that they can, how do we say this? The two theories on religion, one that looks at the great idea and one that looks at the individual experience, kind of what separates Christianity from Buddhism, right? We're thinking about, in our training, we're thinking about making the cues the mantra themselves to encourage people to be present with each individual movement and then to hold that attention for the entirety of your training session. I think I said that right. And then you're learning to hold your focus longer. So when people learn something like inside circles, outside circles, and shield cast, in the beginning they do a half density cycle and it's 10 sets of 5, or a half volume cycle and they'll do 10 sets of 5. And then eventually they'll do a full volume cycle, which is 20 sets of 5. And that, when they get up to it, could take anywhere, depending on the movement, from 7 minutes to 10 minutes per movement. So they are learning to focus and be present in the exact rep, every rep, for 7 to 10 minutes. And then we jump and we have them focus on some other type of thing for 7 to 10 minutes. And then they focus on some other type of thing for 7 to 10 minutes. You will notice that this is kind of a mantra, this is kind of kung fu, and this is kind of meditation, all wrapped up into one thing, combined with basic human movement. So I don't have people focus on outside mantras because I want them to focus on the internal experience, which is also often why I don't let anybody train in front of mirrors in the beginning, because I don't want them to look at themselves. I want them to feel it in their body and then identify the experience and then how to replicate it over time. Boy, we are nerds. Nerds. Somebody just point at us and scream nerds in loud voice with a pointed finger. Question on mill squat progression. Do you think it's worthwhile repeating the mill squat program with the one-handed versions once out of the weights with the two-handed version? Yeah, sure, go for it. I have a whole separate program for that, but you can totally do that, 100%. Because there's 4 rounds, you'll get an equal number of reps on both sides. So absolutely, you can do that in lieu of getting a heavier weight. 100%, totally a great idea. It is hard on you though. It's a lot of stability. With the squat, think elbow tracks inside the knee line. Rooted Mace. Benefits of 10 to 2 Mace swings versus the 360, please. Why do many Mace performers focus on the 10 to 2? I don't know. They like it. The 10 to 2 is classic. It's the classic, it's the Gata swing, right? So it's most famous moves. I like the shield cast or the 360 because I want people to pull their elbows all the way in and transition across with this body turn, because I find it super useful for teaching people the basics of martial arts defense movements. People who do 10 to 2s can kind of skip that. So I think that that just has to do with my previous training and what I like. This move, the shield cast or the 360, to me is one of the most important moves in all of human history, because it's in literally every martial art that's ever been created that uses a weapon, every single one. The 10 to 2 people is, I think the 10 to 2 is awesome because it's alternating directions. So what you're going to notice when you're a coach for a long period of time is you always start with the 360. I focus on getting people to bring their elbows all the way down. A lot of Mace guys don't do this, and they will try to transition with their elbows up high to get faster. I don't care about getting faster. I want my elbows all the way down so that my rib cage pushes down to fire effectively and I catch in that stable position. But that's a difference of style. When you train, you'll notice people get really good at 360s, and then you add in 10 to 2s because they are alternating directions. And this is a neurological thing. People are not good at alternating directions. They can go one direction really well, and then they learn both hands equally well. And then when you put in 10 to 2s, you'll see people have a freak out for like 2 weeks as their body learns to alternate sides. I don't know why people like 10 to 2s more. I like 360s more. 10 to 2s are great. But because they do the 10 to 2, I see a lot of people not completing the movement in my mind. But that's entirely stylistic. I am much more interested in the different transition because I come from a martial arts background. So it's up to everybody. It's up to each individual practitioner. But you will notice I coach 360s and 10 to 2s slightly different than almost everybody else. Cal. Nerd math question. Can you talk about how to progress on shield cast when you've reached 100 reps while outside and inside lag behind? Don't. Don't. Start your shield cast over and get better at it. Yeah, if you're inside and you're outside, so I want those things to stay together forever. If your shield cast is above your inside and your outside, something went weird with your math already, because they should all be progressing at the same pace. If you're ahead, then either just let it stay at 100 reps and let your let your inside and your outside catch up. The whole point of inside and outside is inside, you're doing one type of shoulder therapy. Outside, you're doing the exact opposite. And then shield cast, you're doing something else. So I'm trying to get people to maintain those three things together all the time because I want their shoulder to be balanced as possible for those movements. So if one of them is ahead, just keep it steady or take it back down to where the other ones are and give your tendons and your ligaments more time to adapt. There is absolutely no problem with more time for your tendons and ligaments to adapt. That's a good thing. When people end up with trouble with heavy club swinging or mace swinging, it's because they went up in weight beyond the rate at which their tendons and their ligaments could adapt because blood flow to those tissues is lower than it is to muscles. Give yourself that time. The original Shaolin form was called the Muscle Tendon Change Classic, right? It's an old idea, right? Everybody's known about this for a long time. We in the West have forgot about it because we want to get all muscles big. And we want to get bigger, but a lot of times people's muscles get bigger than their tendons and their ligaments can support, which is why you get a lot of elbow issues, shoulder issues, back issues, hip issues, knee issues. Evan Croshaw, club question. I've noticed I do more of a sword strike style single arm mill as opposed to a more strict style where you would push the club out more before the swing. Potential problems, thoughts? It's not going to work with a heavier weight. So I believe what he's saying is he's extending his arm up higher as opposed to pulling his elbow down first. So for a sword strike, thinking extending your arms out at the top of the movement, letting the blade contact and then fall through the target. There's nothing wrong with that. You'll see a lot in things like fancy Indian club swinging. It just doesn't work when you get to a 30-pound club for single arm. The type of mill and reverse mill I teach is meant to single hand up to a 40 or a 50. And you are not going to pull off the sword strike with a 40 or a 50 unless you can pull off my version with probably a 60 single hand, which is unlikely. Unlikely. There's no problem with it. It's all based on what your training is. I separate something like sword training from something like club training. And there's a weird idea here, is that you do not want your weight training to directly mimic your sport. You want to use the same muscle chains in the same way, but you do not mimic the movement exactly, because they compete in your head. It's and there's a lot of back talk and forth about this in the training community about what's accurate and what's not. And people are going to be fighting about this probably forever. You can use a slightly heavier sword and work on your technique so that a light sword feels lighter, but that should still be different than the technique that you do with a heavy club. So I teach my mill and my reverse mill in a very specific way where the elbow pulls to hip before the arm extends, because I'm trying to get people heavier and heavier, because when they use a sword or something like that, it all feels light anyway. If you can single arm a 25-pound club, then a 2-pound sword doesn't feel all that terrible. You certainly protected your joints. Is there anything wrong with doing that extension version? No, just be aware it's not going to work as you go up in weight. If it does, I'd love to hear about it. I've never seen anybody pull it off with, say, like a 30-pound club. Hello to Spain. Inglés con Alan. Inglés con Alan. Hello, Spain. How are you guys today? I don't know if this is a comment or not. It's just me. Great name. And with Xmas coming up, this person gets to, where'd it go? Gets to choose one new piece of home gym equipment. I work out at home. What should I choose? I have one heavy kettlebell, dumbbells, med ball, and parallel bars. Was looking at the On It water. I assume that's On It water bag. Yeah, sure. Hydrocore or adjustable kettlebell. Adjustable kettlebell, 8X club. I don't think that so you have some of the most high value things that you can get. Adjustable competition kettlebell, bells of steel, right? Adjustable 8X club, adjustable 8X Mace system. So much training. It's a lifetime of training. The Hydrocore, fantastic travel training option. I myself got myself a bells of steel bench, which I'm going to try to open up after I clean down here, because I'm not doing it outside because it's -8. Yeah, I love spending money on gym equipment and health stuff because it's durable, right? It doesn't go bad. Like, this thing will outlast civilization by far. Somebody will dig it up in 10,000 years and wonder what the hell it is. And I think that money spent on your health and fitness is always good. So if you get to pick a new piece of gear, pick a kettlebell, pick a club, pick a mace. Hydrocore is super fun if you're going to be traveling all the time. Sandbags, but your high value ones are the kettlebell, adjustable mace, and Hydrocore, the highest value ones probably. Alan. Sorry, that was a comment from Spain. Alan or Alan? I think it's Alan. I don't know. In America, we would say Alan. I don't know. I think it's Alon in Spain. I didn't see any fun nerd questions. I was hoping for a fun nerd question today. Here's a comment from Pat Spree. We were talking about earlier about real kung fu being taught not just as forms, but as actual throws and strikes in combat martial arts. And Pat Spree is making a comment that there are similar stories in the karate community with a few Okinawans that taught the real version of karate to Westerners, with all of the intention put in and all of the throws put in, being ostracized by their communities for doing that thing. So many Asian martial arts take money from Westerners and teach them the dance version of it without explaining what any of the movements are. And you'll notice that usually when they teach it, they'll teach it as a performative art, so the lines aren't the same, the real lines. And if you, there are some like, people say that my kung fu doesn't look like wushu, and it doesn't, because mine, the kung fu I learned, I got a little bit of both. I got a lot of the movement memorization of poetry, but I got the real lines, and it looks different than something like modern wushu. The same thing is true in karate. Karate. Super fun to say it that way. And you'll see people who do forms with the slow speed in the snap. You'll see sanshin guys. Like, that's not how it looks in real life, but they do it that way as a performative aspect and as a mental emotional training. And I love watching. There's some Okinawan martial artists that I watch. There's a famous female Okinawan martial artist I watch, and her forms are incredible. Her speed is incredible. But the lines don't look like they really do when you actually apply those movements in real life. Yeah, so you'll find that throughout history, certain martial arts are not taught completely. And therefore people think that they don't work. That's not true. They all work. Otherwise they wouldn't have existed for, Chinese martial arts have existed in some form or another for 5,000 years. Shaolin certainly for 1,000 years. Long fist for at least 800. Things don't exist that long if they don't work. They just don't. They're just not telling. We're not always being told the correct thing in the correct order for a reason. And it's our job as practitioners of any martial art to analyze and break things down. I used to think that I was going to find a Yoda and somebody was going to teach me all the sweet Jackie Chan stuff. And I realized that absolutely nobody was going to teach me that stuff. And I had to teach it to myself. So I had to go through martial arts and break them down and then practice them and try what works and why. And I haven't practiced in years now because of COVID and travel and everything else, but that is what we would do. People would come over and you would work, and I used to have my friend, and she would come over and she would say, I have this form, I don't know what this move means. And we would go through the process of analyzing a movement from one of her sets and finding ways to apply it, and then building a 10-hour training program around this one micro movement, where we analyzed it. We came up with 3 things that we think it could be. Then we worked on the entrance to it. Then we would change the entrance direction to it. We would do it an equal number of times left and right. Then we would change the pressing angle or something like that. And we would super science the shit out of it. And you can teach yourself these martial arts if you understand the process of how to break it down and how to learn. It is super nerdy. So I never got the Yoda that I was looking for, but I accidentally became the Yoda for other people, because I was willing to help people break down what they wanted to learn, and we were willing to learn together. And my job was simply to design the experiment to help people get to where they wanted to be, which is probably more of an Obi-Wan than a Yoda, but same thing. Tom Furman, did you enjoy Chris Hemsworth film Extraction? Absolutely. Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. So, what's that guy's name who directed that? He's one of the lead guys, I think, from 8711. And he did a bunch of stuff. So 8711 is John Wick, Jim. And those guys have practiced 7 major martial arts, and then they combine them all in different ways using essentially Aikido stepping footwork and entrances. And then they, if you'll notice, martial arts in movies in the 80s was way simpler because people were trying to figure out how to shoot it. And you'll see something like John Wick was like the epitome of martial arts on film because they weren't just two guys kicking and punching. Now they were kicking, punching, entrance, turns, going over things. And those guys at 8711 created an entire structure about how to teach martial arts and then how to design fights for film and then how to ensure that everybody understood how to do it in the minimum amount of time on set, which was really what was legendary. John Wick had an extremely short shooting schedule, like 30 days. Whereas like a shooting schedule for like a big movie like Wonder Woman is like 9 months, 9 times as long. So a lot of those scenes in something like John Wick had one day to get this huge entire fight scene. And then you couldn't get into the set until the day of the shoot, as I understand it. And so all of the fight scenes were designed, but then they had to be able to be adjusted on the fly for the location that they were in and the position of the camera and the lights. So an incredible learning strategy that those guys have at 8711. One of the greatest learning strategy things I've ever seen. Extraction is an outgrowth of that idea, when you'll notice things like Atomic Blonde, also crazy badass, awesome. Atomic Blonde is probably one of my favorites, other than Wick. But I loved Extraction. I loved Extraction. There was a lot of super fun stuff in there. And you can see when you watch it how they design the fight scenes with the location and everything else. I thought Extraction was brilliant on the fight scene side. Absolutely brilliant on the fight scene side. Yeah, it's a whole, they've recreated action filmmaking. There's this one group of guys in LA and they have recreated action filmmaking and they are taking over Hollywood by doing that. And fight scenes for the next 10 years are better and better and better. Because you'll notice it's not like Hong Kong where there's wire work. It's no wire work. There's a little bit, well, the final fight scene, the final where John Wick gets thrown off the building in John Wick 3, obviously that was a wired decelerator to keep the guy from actually dying. Because they actually threw that guy off that building. Yeah, Extraction, fantastic movie, loved it. Health question, what do you do to deal with a cough? Dr. Schultz cold and flu. It's expensive. It's a series. It's think of it like Chinese medicine. It's herbs in a shot, and it is brutal. I'm just out of it right now. I took it all last week. It's fantastic. It will kill almost anything that you have. So I need to order myself some. God, I keep hitting that cord. I need to order myself some for Thailand to take with me in these little small bottles that are less than 3 ounces each, so you can take them on the plane, and you take a shot of it every day. And it is brutal, but man, that stuff will clear up almost anything. Dr. Schultz cold and flu comes in these little brown cases, or you can get these big brown bottles of it. Super expensive. Tracy Allen. Can I suggest a skateboard, duct tape, a camera, rope, and a smooth floor to create a walking tape? Yeah, that would be great. I don't have anywhere to put a skateboard right now. It's not very cool. Ohio's not a great place to shoot videos. You'll notice all my videos are just shot out in the fields and in the barn right now. It doesn't look cool around here, especially in the winter. In the spring, it's not bad. It's very green and lush. But in the winter, it's just brown and awful, and there's no place to put a skateboard out here. One of the reasons I never learned to skateboard is there's nowhere to skateboard in Ohio if you live in the country. When I say nowhere, I mean nowhere. Yeah, but I would love to do that. Maybe if we do it at Gambate. But the problem with Gambate Fitness in Los Angeles is that there are a bunch of windows along the back wall, and if you were to do that, then it would be backlit the entire time. So I don't really have the budget to do a lot of the fun stuff that I would like to do, but hopefully in 2023, we can try to do more fun stuff with film. You'll notice that I have a ton of awesome ideas that I would love to do, but I simply don't have the time or the skilled camera people to pull it off. When I shoot videos, I pull camera people in from all over the place, and you'll notice the quality goes up and down a lot. And that's fine. We do the best we can with what we have, and the goal is just to keep moving forward every day. But I would love to get a budget. If I got a budget, this whole thing would be different. This whole thing would be vastly different. Uh, I'm trying to get a warehouse space right now, but I have no idea if I'll be able to pull it off after COVID and everything like that, the destruction of credit and everything that goes with that. Because I have a whole series of ideas of things that I would like to do, but I need a warehouse to do it. So right now, we just don't have the resources to do a lot of the fun stuff. Do it at Venice Skate Park. Great idea. Have you been to Venice lately? War zone. Don't go anywhere near it. It's covered in drug addicts and human feces. I'm not going anywhere near Venice right now. Absolutely nowhere near Venice. Until somebody decides to clean up Los Angeles and prosecute crime, I'm not going down there. The amount of crime in Venice is astronomical. I don't know if they've cleaned it up in the last couple of months, but it was really, really bad. Really, really bad. Terrifying. I had several friends attacked on Venice. People who lived there their entire life moved out. So we're not shooting anything in Venice until somebody in the Los Angeles government decides to actually do their job. Question, what thoughts do you have on getting clubs into the hands of occupational therapists and PT, physical therapists? I would love to do it. Sports Therapy Scotland does all types of therapy stuff, and he's into clubs, and he's an education leader in therapy. So hopefully, it builds out eventually. I would like to see every therapist doing the basis of strength program and the single arm club training program, because they are the most economical possible ways to solve the problem. But it kind of gets rid of some of the magic of therapy. Therapists maintain their job by using a bunch of weird stuff and combining it in weird ways, like bands, very much like a magician class of people who help people. I'm not sure how much therapists want to do what I do, because it would solve the problems forever. And I have no idea, that's just me projecting, but I have no idea how we would get people to do that. How, if therapists just taught everybody fancy club swinging, that could be their entire job. That could be their entire job. It would solve a lot of problems. Can you make a budget and post it online? Crowdsource funding? No, I can't. Because I do essentially rogue filmmaking. I come up with a series of ideas, and instead of doing production like you would on a film, where you have a specific script and a set series of ideas with lighting, camera, all these other things, locations, and then you would build a budget around that because you're delivering an end product which is worth X amount of money. I can't do that. I don't have a way to market something like that. If I got a deal with something like a channel, a TV, and they paid me to produce a series, then that's how we would do it. Right now, I look at what I have, where I'm at, what I need to do, and I figure out any way to make it happen. I have a great idea for what I would like to do with a couple of my stunt friends, and I've been talking to them about it for like 5 years. And what we really need is a warehouse and a shit ton of time to do it. And it would be absolutely incredible. But I would need I would need somebody to stand there. I would need 2 camera people for 8 hours a day. I would need an on-site editor. There you have 3 people plus location, plus my stunt friends, right? You're looking at, a minimum $1,000 a day. And, I have no idea how long it would actually take to output the idea, because the idea is to do it on camera as you do it. There's a whole process idea that I want to work on. And I just would need somebody to write me a blank check and have faith in me. But I don't think that's going to happen. That would be great, though. I would love to do that. I have some killer ideas that could go on for the next 5 years if I could just get original funding. So my idea is I need to get funding, and then I need to finish my programs, finish an app, use all that to get a location to move into the next, essentially phase 4 of what I want to do. Grant Gardner. Grant Gardner is talking about occupational therapists and getting people into the clubbing world. The more you guys can spread the word, the better it goes. The more people do kettlebells and clubs and maces and hydrocore and all this stuff, the better the whole world will get on accident. My job is to try to provide a clear path forward for the bottom 90% of the population. And we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to do it with whatever money we have and wherever we're at. And we're just going to keep hammering at it forever because, frankly, I think that that's what I'm doing now. I think that's my Yoda path forward. So thanks everybody for coming in, and we've been here for 2 hours now. As usual, we talked about a bunch of nerdy stuff. We talked a lot about martial arts, I think, today, and we can talk about those topics forever. Martial arts, traditional forms of strength training that existed for hundreds of years. Right, the Beijing strength tests lasted for 300 years or something like that. So all the stuff that we're doing now is just very ephemeral. We're trying to pull together the best series of ideas, but there have been strength training systems which have existed for hundreds of years with standards that are crazy by today's standards. People were a lot stronger and a lot better trained in the past. My job is to try to find equipment and build programs around equipment that's the most economical, that gets people the most benefit in the least amount of time, so we can improve the greatest number of lives, the greatest number of people's lives. Yes. So we're going to keep doing that as long as we can. Thank you, everybody, for bringing questions and keeping up with this whole idea. Thank you, everybody, for going to the Discord, writing down questions ahead of time. Thank you to KD for bringing those questions forward to me and letting me think about it. The more you guys ask me questions, the more we refine our thought process, the better we all get at everything all the time. So, Merry Christmas. Happy Nakatomi Tower Day coming up here. Everybody, your homework is to go watch Die Hard and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I did not mispronounce epitome. Epitome is the epitome of epitomes.